And so for any agent that's watching or listening, and you are wanting to get involved with us from a coaching relationship standpoint, we will put a link for you to schedule some time to talk to us more about that in the description beneath this video. All right, so a couple stories that came out. Number one, Zillow is planning to expand their post-pay Premier Agent, which used to be Zillow Flex. I want to talk about that and some interesting insights there. And then we're going to talk about what I believe is a real estate agent's most valuable asset in their business. And then lastly, I want to talk about a lot of agents, especially for whatever reason that we've been coaching, are talking about starting a team. So talk about some pitfalls there to avoid and what that's all about. So let's jump into the Zillow story. So Zillow, historically, as everybody knows, has been a lead generation platform for real estate agents, one that agents would pay X dollars in exchange for leads, and then they would do their best to close those leads. Now, Zillow, I think it started in 2019, came out with Zillow Flex, where instead of paying up front for leads, you wouldn't pay anything until that lead actually closes, and then you'd have to pay 35%. Now, I think that Zillow doing this is actually genius, but there's some downsides for the agents, but I think they're genius, because what's happening is essentially they're going from a lead buy model to essentially a business partner with realtors, just like a brokerage would. They get 35% of the commission without the complexity of running a brokerage day-to-day operationally. And the best thing that said in this report, and I'll just read it to you guys, they said the most eye-catching part of this post-pay model is that it's only available to agents that they invite to the platform, in that it's only for top-performing agents, which means in markets that are going to this new model that there's going to be a lot of agents that get cut from the old program. And so when they've done this before, like in Raleigh or in Denver, they had several hundred agents per market get cut from the program because it was only for top agents or top team leaders. So what was your guys' original initial thoughts? And then I want to go deeper on a couple thoughts that I had. Ben?
Yeah, so I had a very similar, take that you did. Is what a smart move, because especially in the economy we're in right now, agents have a scarcity mindset a lot of times. So they, when things were really good, they were willing to shell out the dollars to pay for leads and buy leads. But as the economy has shifted, things, inflation, etc., people often cut, things like their marketing. And even though they were spending money and it might have been the only source of their business, they might take a step back and cut that. So Zillow, very strategically, only picking and taking their top performing agents and offering this flex, in reality, it probably cost them the exact same amount through the end pay versus the prepay for the agent and for Zillow. But they have changed the perception that the agent now is winning. But in reality, probably nothing's changing. If anything, maybe Zillow's winning more.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, all of what you just said. And the thing is, it is all, well, a little bit of perception, but I think Zillow's saying, well, we can get a lot more for our leads. But the problem I'm sure they face, like a lot of team leaders do and a lot of broker owners do, and quite frankly, a lot of coaches do, is if the agent doesn't do their part, then it's all for naught, right? So Zillow's saying, well, Colton, I can sell you these leads for $150, $200 a pop, $300 a pop, and let you go do what you want with it, knowing most agents don't have a solid follow-up system. Most of them aren't going to have a high speed to lead. Most of them don't have great skills, so they convert very, very low. Zillow's saying, well, these leads should be converting. And they've tested this in other markets. And they said, well, if we can get these leads into the hands of the right agents and the right team leader, we can get 35% on the back end.
And Premier was like tryouts, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So there's some angles that I thought about, but Colton, before I jump into what those are, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think overall it's a smart move. Now, what I am curious to kind of see happen is their main source of cash flow, the way they're getting paid now, Brandon, you just touched on, they're getting paid regardless of what the agent does. And what we've been hearing more and more through talking to agents and coaching agents is that those that are working heavily with buyers, the hardest thing they're facing right now is not only low inventory, still a little bit better than it was, but still low, but now interest rates, deals falling apart for that. So I find it interesting to see how this is going to play out with the post-pay model now with interest rates at play. Zillow's taking a risk of clients, the buyers falling out, not getting approved, so on and so forth. Whereas regardless before, like you said, they're getting paid either way. And so I think it's interesting timing. Obviously, Premier's not ending. They stress that. So they're still going to have Premier as a program, but just in certain markets. So I found that to be interesting with where interest rates are right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if I'm Zillow, I'm probably doing exactly what they're doing. If you think about what they're doing, I mean, Zillow's a real estate brokerage now. I mean, they're part of NAR. They're a real estate company. I mean, that's what they are. And so think about it. That's the way I think about this is in terms of, okay, what would you rather do if you had a real estate sales team and you were generating leads for your team members, which is what agents expect to have happen? Would you rather get $100 a piece for those? Or do you want 50% of the pie or 30% of the pie or 45%, right? So that's the way I look at it. Zillow's saying, okay, and I don't know how many deals they do per year or whatever, but let's just call it on 100 transactions. If you're selling those leads at $100 a pop or $200 a pop, that's one thing. To get 35% of 100 deals is a much bigger pie. And so Zillow said in the report, again, another thing I think is really, really smart, they have thousands of agents buying leads from them, right? Their goal, and what I believe is happening, and they're doing it right now with this post-pay plan, is they're saying, hey, we'd rather go deeper with a lot less agents than wider with a lot more agents. We will be more profitable. The agents will do more business as a result because we have less partners. We're giving the vast majority of our lead flow to fewer agents in a market. And that is the piece I want to talk about. This is the thing, I think, Ben, I don't know if you were alluding to this or not earlier. This is the interesting part about this. They get you can get agents hooked on this, where it's like it's hard to get out because here's the thing.
Golden handcuffs.
Yeah, it's the golden handcuffs. Because if you're getting 5, 10 closings a month from Zillow, although you might be giving up 30, 35%, without them, you might be doing 1. I mean, that's a huge chicken or the egg. And, margins are just getting thinner and thinner because the other thing I thought about was if Zillow's getting 35%, most of the people on Zillow Flex are these large teams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's the part that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out. Does Zillow say, or not Zillow, do the team leaders say, well, we can't make money on this anymore? If Colton, you're on my team, we're on a 50-50 split, right? And Zillow's taking 35% off the top on one of these. But Colton, you're one of my best sales guys. You can convert these leads better than anybody else in the marketplace. Well, you just got a 35% haircut, my friend.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I looked at was, on a $10,000 commission where traditionally, Colton, you were getting 5. The way most of these teams are going to do it is that 35% will come off the top before our split. So instead of splitting 10K, we're splitting 7,500. So now you're getting 3,750, and I'm getting 3,750. I don't know. I mean, do teams continue to do that, or do they start to look at other avenues, other channels? That will be the cobra effect or the unintended consequence that Zillow might have to consider down the road.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
It's like I said, it's interesting to see now what you just said earlier in terms of because Zillow's business model now primarily having the teams, right? The teams can afford a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month budget up front with expecting some return. Smaller agents can't, single agents, tinier teams. And so maybe this is targeted more towards, like you said, going deeper with fewer agents. This might make more sense for the individual agent versus the team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When I was that's exactly right. And it's just, you got to look at the numbers. I just don't know how. I mean, most of these teams, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, most of these teams are operating on such thin margins, and brokers even on thinner margins. That will be the thing that time will tell is the value return for me. Listen, a property specific lead is in fact the best highest converting lead in our business, right? The Zillow realtor.com lead, where a consumer literally is calling in on a property. Maybe a Zillow rep is talking to them. They got them on the phone. They do a hot transfer to you, Ben. They say, hey, this person's ready. I mean, that's what realtors want, right? Let's just call it what it is. That's what they want. Yes, they're all buyer leads primarily. Yes, you could probably get some listings, sure. But the interesting thing will be, at which point does an agent say, well, man, I have to do the same amount of work with 5 Zillow closings than I would one of my own closings, where I'm not paying that 35% or I'm not paying this commission split. At which point does it become, a negative return? That's what I was thinking about.
Mm-hmm. And I think what they've done a good job of with the way that they've transitioned is they've taken the agent variable out, because they're taking all the top performings. They already know this works. They're getting rid of all the people that don't cut it, and they track this stuff like crazy. So if you're not in the green zone on your response time, if you're not in the green zone on the amount of times you follow up, all that stuff, you're out. So I think that, I mean, granted, they just had iBuyer fail and different things fail, but they've got a runway to really make this work. And I think there's a lot of agents that are willing to just be busy and be in the business and make 75, 100K and be busy than sit at home and try and piece together one deal, right? I don't know. Like, obviously, if you can, the guy that has the leads is in control, right? So if you can generate your own leads, obviously it's more advantageous for you to be solo. But if
that's right,
if you don't want to do that, then and do 3 times as many deals to be in the business, then it can be a good avenue for you. Just know that they can pull the plug and cut you from the team at any time. You're not in control.
That's right.